Hello everyone, welcome to Barca News. It is July 30th, 2024 and Barcelona just played their first preseason match against Manchester City where they won during the penalty shootout. Also, Lazio are now willing to pay a transfer fee for Vitor Roque, and finally Joao Felix still keeping his hopes up of coming to Barcelona. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo, and before we begin with the news, just a quick reminder to make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. All of this helps this channel continue to grow. Also, if you are looking for any Barcelona jerseys or merchandise, make sure you hit the goal kits, skip bag, or fanatics. You have plenty of options there. If you are looking to place any sports bets, make sure you head to Bet Us, where you can place bets on all sporting events around the world. All links are down below in the description. Now begin this video with the news that Barcelona just won their first preseason match against Manchester City in penalty shootouts, which I thought was the weirdest thing. I've never seen a penalty shootout during a friendly match, but nonetheless, Barcelona did win the match through penalty shootouts after it ended in a draw 2-2, with Barcelona's goals coming from Pau Victor and Pablo Torre, and then with Astralaga blocking two of Manchester City's penalty kicks, and therefore Barcelona winning their first preseason match against Pep Guardiola's Manchester City through a penalty shootout. Now I do have to talk about what I saw during this match, because I thought it was a pretty good display by Hansi Flick's men, especially during the first half. And the first thing I noticed was what we all expected: an increase in the intensity of the players. We saw the players consistently running after the ball, immediately pressuring the Manchester City players as soon as they got the ball, immediately trying to close down the spaces. And that continued throughout most of the match, with the players not slowing down despite the excessive heat in Orlando and despite the continuous rain. Another thing that I noticed was how closely the lines were to each other. There was very little spaces between Barcelona's lines, and what was most impressive about that is how fast the players could contract and expand again, because when you play with very close lines, it's very difficult to then try to expand your lines when you switch up from defense to attack. But Barcelona were able to do that flawlessly, and they were able to do that very fastly. And the most impressive things that I saw during tonight's match was how fast Barcelona was able to get to Manchester City's box. Now, at the beginning, Barcelona were kind of under a lot of pressure by Manchester City. Manchester City were consistently attacking, and that's very much expected, because first of all, we had a lot of youngsters on the field who lack a lot of experience, but more importantly, you are playing against Manchester City, so even if you have your best people on the field, you're still going to suffer, because they will eventually get possession of the ball and cause a lot of damage or attack a lot. But despite all of that, despite Barcelona being under continuous pressure by Manchester City, they were able to make it to Manchester City's box really easily, just 2-3 touches, and they were already in Manchester City's box, which was very, very impressive, and of course a huge improvement from how the team used to attack under Xavi Hernandez. Now, of course, this was a friendly match. This is just a preseason match where both teams were trying out different players in different positions and different strategies. So we cannot make conclusions yet because it's too early in the game. But I have to say, I was very, very impressed with the intensity of the team, how close their lines were, how fast they can contract and expand, and most importantly, how fast they can make it to Manchester City's box with only 2 or 3 touches. Now, as far as the players, the most impressive player on the field I thought was Marc Casado, which I can now see why Hansi Flick has been raving about this player, because I thought Casado was absolutely impeccable. The way he dictated the tempo, the way he distributed the ball, and the way he just his commanding presence in the midfield was absolutely amazing. And not to mention, he did it with so much confidence and he was so relaxed in that role. Not at one point did he seem like he was out of his depth. Not at one point did he seem nervous or like he did not, or that the pressure was getting to him. He was absolutely calm and composed in the way he completely dictated the tempo and distributed the ball in Barcelona's midfield. And I have to say, Marc Asado has to be a starter during the season. Of course, assuming that he continues to do an amazing job in that position. Another player that was incredibly impressed with is Pau Victor, and I'm not saying that because he scored Barcelona's goal. In fact, he had several chances, but it was very, very impressive, the timing of Pau Victor, or the timing of his runs, I should say. And he was able to cause a lot of danger with those time runs. And in fact, before he scored the goal, he had two incredible runs where Marc Asado passed him the ball and he was able to get in a very dangerous position. And then eventually that culminated in Pau Victor's goal, where he finished that pass from Marc Asado in a brilliant way, which goes to show that last season, his 20 goals last season with Barca Athletic was not a fluke, and that we might have a future striker here on our hand. Another players that I thought were interesting to watch was Julian Araujo. He might have not gotten a lot of participation during the second half of the first half, but I thought during the first 20 minutes of the first half, he was very, very dangerous on the attack. He had some pretty dangerous crosses, which is good to see. So I think it's going to be interesting to continue watching Julian Araujo as he continues to develop and continues to train during the preseason. Because again, I'm not saying he had an incredible match, but there was definitely a few flashes of brilliance here and there that I think we do have to keep an eye on, especially on the attack and especially through those crosses where he was able to create some danger with his passes from the flank. Another player that I think is worth mentioning is Alejandro Balde, who, even though he only played 15-20 minutes, the reason I mention him is because he looked very fast and he looked very sharp on that left flank. He had one run where he went from Barcelona's third all the way to Manchester City's final third. Again, I'm not saying that he was an absolute brilliant star and MVP of the player, but it was good to see him, back in his form. Still has that speed, still has that explosiveness, and that is very, very good news because, of course, Alejandro Balde did suffer a very serious injury that necessitated a surgery and that saw him out of the field for several months. So it looks like Balde has recovered well. Hopefully he can continue his current form, or at least continue building up on that form, because we will definitely need Alejandro Balde in that left back position. And also I do want to talk about Vitor Roque, because I thought it was a disappointing performance by Vitor Roque. He looked a little bit lost. Maybe it was because he was playing on the left wing, which is not his natural position. Also, I imagine he has a lot of pressure on him, where there's a lot of talks about Barcelona offloading him and he wants to stay. Not a good night for Vitor Roque. He looked completely lost. He was consistently running after the ball. Not to be mean, but he looked like a headless chicken running after the ball. So not a good performance by Roque. Not a good start to the preseason. Hopefully he can improve. Hopefully he can find his way and shake off all the pressure that he currently has on his shoulder. But I have to say, not a good performance by Roque. And finally, I do want to talk about our goalkeepers, starting with Iñaki Peña, who actually had a really good performance, blocking a lot of dangerous shots by Manchester City players. And I have to say, I think Iñaki Peña received a lot of unfair hate last season because he allowed a lot of goals when he was covering for Ter Stegen. But I think that was more a symptom of how the team was performing at the time. Of course, I'm not saying Iñaki Peña is better or even as good as Ter Stegen, but I think he's still a decent second goalkeeper. And today he showed us that with the several shots that he blocked, which without those blocks, the score would have been against Barcelona. And finally, I do want to mention Astralaga, because the guy did block 2 penalty shots by Manchester City players. And I think the impressive thing about that was not just necessarily the blocks themselves, but the way he did it, because he looked absolutely confident under the post. He looked like he has been a goalkeeper for Barcelona for the last 20 years. Lots of confidence, handling it not letting the pressure get into him and blocking 2 shots, which I thought was absolutely amazing for such a young goalkeeper who is Astralaga. Now, the good news from today is, well, coming out of today, is that Barcelona will be able to make 11 million euros from this preseason tour, which of course is good news. Barcelona are set to receive 5 million euros from the Clásico against Real Madrid, 3 million euros from their match against AC Milan, and 3 million euros from today's match against Manchester City. So Barcelona will be able to pocket 11 million euros in profits, which of course is good news, especially given the club's financial situation. Now, speaking of Vitor Roque, since we did mention him a few moments ago, it's reported that Lazio are now interested in paying a transfer fee for the Brazilian player. Now, Lazio have been tracking Vitor Roque for quite some time. They've been interested in signing Vitor Roque, but it's always been on a loan. But now it's reported that Lazio think very highly of Vitor Roque. They think he would be a great addition to their team. And as such, it's reported that Lazio would be willing to pay a transfer fee for the Brazilian worth 20 million euros for 50% of the rights of the player. Now, Lazio want to make this offer official after the preseason is over. They know that Vitor Roque has rejected many offers right now because he wants to participate in the preseason. He wants to try to convince Flick of giving him a spot on the first team. So they know that he wants to participate in preseason. As such, they are waiting until the preseason is over to see maybe if Vitor Roque cannot earn a spot on a team, then they would want to convince him to join Lazio. They want to reach out to him through his agent to try to convince him to go to the Serie A, and they're willing to offer 20 million euros for 50% of his rights. Now, we will end today's video with the news that Joao Felix is reportedly still keeping his hopes up of coming to Barcelona. And as we know, Joao Felix was looking to finalize his future plans by the end of July or beginning of August. He was negotiating with both Benfica and Aston Villa, but now it's reported that Joao Felix is seeing what's happening at Barcelona, where Nico Williams is not a for sure thing, where maybe Barcelona might not be able to sign Dani Olmo because Leipzig are requesting a lot of money. And as such, it's reported that Joao Felix is monitoring the situation because in case both signings fall through, then Joao Felix will be willing to wait and offer himself to Barcelona, kind of like as a last-ditch effort. Now, I've said my opinion about Joao Felix coming back to Barcelona a million times. I don't think he should. Even if Barcelona cannot sign Nico Williams or Dani Olmo, I don't think bringing Joao Felix will be the answer. But of course, I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts. So let me know down below. Anyways, that is all the news for this video. I did upload another video a few moments ago, so make sure you check it out. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. And as always, peace, Barça.